Hi, Jerry Luker here. Welcome. Good to see everybody. I'd like to share a couple of real quick ideas with you how the purchase and sale that I use, how it's constructed, has made me lots of additional money over the years, especially when somebody defaults. Any investor will tell you they do enough deals, they're going to have some that fall through, and sometimes it's the buyer's fault. They lose earnest. They should lose their earnest money. But there's a lot of loopholes in most of your agreements out there, purchase and sales, even the MLS forms that the realtors use. There's a lot of ways that people take advantage. I have tightened up my contract considerably, so if people mess up, they go into default. I'm going to keep their earnest money, and it's all fair because it costs me several $100s a day to have a home off the market. Okay, here's a couple of interesting things that I haven't seen in other purchase and sales, and part of the way that I do the business, and try to keep a real detailed and tight, rein on things. So the first one is this: when people are wanting to buy, a lot of time they need financing. They have to apply to the bank for financing in a mobile home park. If they want to live in a mobile home park, a home I'm selling there, they have to qualify to live in the park. And the agreements will say, well, yeah, they have to go and approach these people and try to qualify or try to get financing by a certain time. And that's all that most purchase and sales state. Well, yeah, the time frame is great, but you also need, what I put on in addition to that is that, and they will provide all requested documentation to these people. Because at one time I had somebody default on a purchase and sale, and they used the excuse, well, the bank turned me down. Well, the bank asked them for W-2s. They wouldn't provide them W-2s. They wouldn't provide them financial statement. They wouldn't give them any information. So yeah, the bank turned them down. So now, not only do they have to apply within a certain amount of time, they have to provide the necessary documentation requested. Otherwise, they're in default, and I will keep their default money. It's only fair. The house is off the market. It costs you several $100s a day when the house is off the market. So it's only fair. And you can keep that default money if the people lose earnest. Earnest means, serious intent. And if they blow that, they should pay. The second thing that I do is that the bank and the park can give me information if I call and talk to them, because my purchase and sale says that, they give me permission, the buyers give me permission to talk to the bank and talk to the park or whomever it need be, so I can check and see if they've been in, if they're submitting the required docs. They give me permission to check on them, because if they're not on the spot, if they're not getting it done, I want to know as soon as possible. They're going to have to fish or cut bait. I'll move on, because every day costs money. One of the other things I've done, and it is funny actually, is that we had, you learn by experience. We had one fella that he read the contract, he had changed his mind, and he noticed that he says, well, if I get turned down by a bank, then the deal's off and I get my earnest money back. And he had good credit and a job and everything, so the bank would have approved him if he'd applied. But he said, well, he went down the street asking banks if they loan money on mobile homes, and he found one that did not. And he said, can you write me a letter to that effect? And that's what he submitted. So he says, hey, this bank turned me down, so I'm out of the deal. So now my contract says it qualifies a lending institution as a viable lending institution, asterisk, and an explanation, in that the lending institution must, as a normal course of their daily business, loan money on motor homes and mobile homes and parks and whatever. Specifically, they have to do that type of loan. They offer that to the general public. So if the people are turned down, it's because of them, not the bank itself. But that's another loophole that was in there, that if you're turned down, and they didn't say why. I mean, if you just never talked to the bank wouldn't give you money, and they say, well, see. So I think when you lose faith, when you lose earnest, you should pay. And one other thing is interesting. On a default one time, the first one I had, when it went into default, that I called the escrow company, and they knew that it was in default, because the people were supposed to come in with the money to the escrow company. And when the deadline passed, the escrow company is the first one to know that they were in default. But when I called them and asked for the earnest money, they said, we can't send it to you until the buyer comes in and signs an authorization. And I said, wait a minute, the guy that just reneged on the contract, that just blew it, You expect him to come in voluntarily and sign something to give me his money? I said, that's ridiculous. And they said, well, that's the way it is. So the next time it happened, I said, whoa, wait a minute. Before you tell me that, look at my purchase and sale, because very, very specifically in there, the buyer signs, when he signs my original purchase and sale, that he says no additional authorizations are needed for the escrow company to release the funds to me, the seller, upon the guy's default. So I hope that helps. There's just a few of the little ways that I haven't seen all these provisions in any other, contracts or agreements, but all of them are very, very important. They only serve, I guess, to keep people honest, to keep them earnest. And if they're not earnest, darn it, I don't want them taking advantage of me. I'll keep their earnest money, because it's, like I say, it's real expensive to take a house off the market while you're fooling with this type of element. You shouldn't have to do that without getting paid well for it. So, okay, Jerry Looker, see you soon.